welcome. Just a quick introduction to XPM. We're a specialist in transition management, and by that we mean that we specialize in managing transformation projects, managing crises, and also managing discontinuities by injecting interim management into these special situations. It was started about 20 years ago in Paris. We started in India about 8 years ago. We have 9 partners. We've been active in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and we're starting to get active in Chennai. We have also been active in the Middle East. For some reason, even though we don't have an office there, we have projects there. We've focused, we don't have a specific industry focus, but we have done a lot of work in the area of steel, heavy engineering, chemicals, IT, pharma. We've also been in a number of situations, turnarounds, performance improvement, growth, shutting down a factory, all kinds of situations and crises. We're part of something larger called the Will Group. So we have affiliates in the UK, Germany, China, Italy, most of Europe and Asia. So that's a quick introduction. We have, like I said, we have 9 partners. We're quite entrepreneurial in the sense that each partner runs his own practice, his or her own practice. And we collaborate a lot with each other. That's XPM India in a nutshell. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Ranjit. Before we hand it over to Adil, there are a few things that I'd like to share with you. The format of this event today is that Adil will talk to all of us about 30-35 minutes. There will be a 10 minutes question Q&A with me and him. And then the rest 20-25 minutes will be open to all the partners to ask questions to Adil. Right? Now, Adil needs no introduction. In fact, no HR event in this country is complete without his presence. Adil, as promised, I have cut short on your intro. Now all yours.
So thank you very much, and good evening, gentlemen. And of course, I'm making a presumption there is no lady around, so a good evening, gentlemen, is a good enough greeting.
No, there is one lady. Sita is there.
Okay, so good evening, lady and gentlemen. Hi there, Sita. Sorry, I never realized you're there. Great. So what a beautiful world of mystery that we are all living in. We are experiencing today such an unpredictable situation, which only 70 days ago, possibly, we wouldn't have even realized that these are things which could be possible in the world. And in a way, it's a very thrilling and exciting moment if you want to look at it in a much more positive way. And of course, the Chinese always used to say, and that is not the kind of Chinese we are experiencing now, but the Confucians Chinese always used to say that we hope you live in exciting times. So thanks to the Chinese, we are now experiencing exciting times, but I hope we would be experiencing positively exciting times rather than the exciting times that the Chinese are now giving us. So any which ways, the whole idea that we want to talk about today is the kind of role, and unfortunate as we keep talking to a lot of people in the corporate world, we find that lots of people in this world do not seem to be understanding as to what is going on and what kind of leadership organizations and leaders need to be doing and providing. And of course, I'm sure that you gentlemen and ladies are also in the business of providing transition management. So possibly you know much more than most of the people, and I'm sure as much as I know you would know for sure. But it would be a great moment for us to be sharing our thoughts so that there is a collective wisdom that will go out, which will help the world and particularly our partners to find a better way faster in this universe. So the first spate of thoughts that I would really want to talk to you about is this entire thing about us living in the age of black swans. And Black swans, well, don't need any kind of an explanation to an august group like yours. Uh, Black swans are defining moments, as we all know. It is an unprecedented event with a hidden potential and which has the innate ability to unleash severe paradigm shifting consequences. Now, the most important thing is that post the event of the black swan being identified, there is a huge insistence in the world, in hindsight, that the occurrence of the event was very obvious. And of course, people couldn't have predicted it, but after the event happens, now, say for example, the entire universe at a point of time, as Taleb says, believed that the swans were white until, of course, the first black swan was identified, and that was a paradigm redefining moment, because if swans can be black, then the entire theory and paradigm of what the world stands in its ecological balance would change. Say, for example, if you were to come to a conclusion that the Einsteinian formula E is equal to mc square, tomorrow is established that E is not equal to mc square, then the entire set of rules, theories, paradigms, everything that would have been evolved in the world on the basis that E is equal to mc square would totally get destroyed, and therefore the world that we live in will be totally a different world after that event was identified. The most beautiful thing that we are now facing is that whilst when Talib brought out the concept of the black swan, it was an event, and he said that such events had been occasions which could change. We now are actually living in an age which is going to be frequented by these black swan movements. So these black swan moments are going to be redefining not one or two things which are going to change, but a series of things which are going to change. Now, because if you move into the next slide, now question before us, of course, is that if black swans are, why is it that leadership, which is wise, and leadership which is smart and so intelligent and so educated and erudite, is unable to identify the coming of these black swan events? So number one, of course, that we are all victims of the great frameworks which we have developed over a period of time. Our education, our logic, our science develops strong frameworks, and we are victims of looking at the world from the framework that we are so used to looking at it. And therefore, number one is you are unable to penetrate your thinking outside of it. So if swans were white, your mainframe will not allow you to penetrate and ever believe that there is a black swan. If you see one, you will believe it's one rare event that has happened. You will not believe that there is an entire universe of black swans happening, and then it will have a paradigm changing effect. So number one, of course, the frameworks from which we operate in. Second is the human mind, unfortunately, has tendency to be preoccupied by protecting the most obvious monster, or the Pareto monster. So in the pattern, we are identified by systematic thinking designed to look at only that what is the Pareto monster, and we don't want to look at anything outside of that Pareto to ever believe that there is something which will have a larger influence and impact at a later point of time. The monster of Pareto criticalities is overfed by our resources. So the moment we see these Pareto monsters of Pareto criticalities, we want to ensure that we are protected. Therefore, unusual amount of time, unusual amount of attention is given to that, versus the human mind has a tendency to starve what is not seen as a Pareto calamity, and therefore the small ones which have huge impact to cause a great potential of change in the world is somehow not given an attention, because at the point of time when it is being evaluated, it is not the big monster problem on the table, and therefore does not get attention. Potential crisis therefore is missed out. Now, what is important is that why do people in black swan events, after the event happens, tend to have a belief that, oh, actually we realized that it was happening? Why do they get that feeling? And that feeling comes from the fact that these events don't out of the blue suddenly emerge on the horizon. Traces and evidences of these events are lying strewn around. Unfortunately, our leadership is not trained to identify these strewn pieces of evidences and build it or stitch it up or weave it into a larger story which will tell them as to what are the events to come. Now, so most important when we get into leadership selection at any point of time, and so many of my senior clients have been asking as to what should be the future way of looking at it more at an academic exercise at a point, I would say that, leadership needs to develop great insight into trying to identify these unique strewn pieces of evidences which have a higher impact and bring them together as a collective story and look at the big data rather than look at it as small, meaningless, small, unimpactful events, which then we tend to miss out. And the second competence that we will have to identify for leadership is the unique ability leadership needs to show to be able to manage these kinds of events and crises. Now, what is important is that the current set of leadership is very comfortable managing what is imminent and obvious crisis and managing steady state businesses. We have no doubt of leaders who are there in the organization who can manage these two situations. But when the events are changing and when things are happening and going the way it is going, we are now going to be looking forward to leaders who are able to manage not the imminent crisis, but these evidences of strewn crisis and build a story of what changes are going to happen, and then be able to manage not only a steady state business, but an adversity driven business for which they will have to try and help the businesses get results. And that is the major change in the leadership framework which you will see coming at a given point of time. Now, as a consequence of all of these things happening, we are now facing a grave world. The experiences we are facing are very grave. VUCA was very, very watered down version of what is grave. Grave stands for Gordian, ruptured, abstruse, vulnerable, and enigmatic. Gordian, it is so complicated like the Gordian knot that you don't know which end of the rope is gone into what and how the knot has got, such that no one will know how to open the knot out. We are in such a complicated story that we don't know where to begin unknotting it. Maybe like King Arthur, we will have to bring a sword and cut on through the Gordian knot. But this is the kind of experience of the Gordian kind of feeling is existing. Plus, the whole system is ruptured or fractured. The entire continuity and your experiences in the last 2 months will be very similar, that what you are seeing is a ruptured stage of a fracture between what was happening one day before when this lockdown was announced and the events that have happened thereafter. There is a huge fracture that has suddenly been noticed. And it's very abstruse, perplexing, unable to make sense of. Don't know when I'm going out, I'm looking out for an enemy. Who is this enemy? And I don't even know what is this enemy. And therefore, it is a very abstruse kind of situation we are experiencing, which will throw up a huge amount of vulnerability. Each one of us is feeling so defenseless. Right of now, we don't even know that if a coronavirus was to hit you and me, what is the medication available really? Are there any vaccines available? Are there vaccines going to be found? We don't know. And therefore, our vulnerability in these kind of black swan events are very, very high. And therefore, it is very dark, doubtful, cryptic, and therefore enigmatic. Therefore, my belief is that, these kinds of adverse events, and which are going to happen much more frequently, are going to create these kind of grave situations and experiences. And therefore, for leadership to be able to manage themselves out of this, they will have to be a very, what would one say, very classical, very sharp, and I'll come to that, very astute. Leadership will have to be very astute to be able to manage businesses and give guidance to their clients to be able to manage the situation. Why are we in this situation? We are in this situation because hopelessly we were myopic. We have been so monster obsessed that we haven't seen the evidences and traces. We have been very myopic about it. We have lost our human touch. We have been so focused on trying to do value creation without understanding implication on the human resources, on the human touch is totally lost. We have calculated the entire impact of globalization. We have only looked at the positive advantages of globalization to now realize that globalization also has a disadvantage. We have been economically very smart, but ecologically very, very dumb and stupid. We have done to the planet what we ideally should have never been doing to our planet. We are all connected. As you will see, the entire supply chain has been connected in such a way but we are in a connected world, which is not a collaborating world. Or China would not have been doing what it is supposed to have been doing. And therefore, we are in a connected world of supply chain, but not necessarily a collaborative world. We have been commercially smart, but we have not been wise. We have been motivating, but we have not been inspirational in doing the right thing with the right values. And that is what has brought us to this kind of situation. Could you move 2 doodles away because I've crossed 1 doodle, please, Vikas? Vikas, would you move us to slides after this?
Yeah, this thing is stuck a bit, so let me stop share and start it again because the presentation seems to be stuck on that.
No, I will continue whenever you are able to talk, because these are slides which are going to only elaborate. They're not going to really bother our discussions on this. So now it is very important, and you will see in the doodle a certain pictorial representation of what is happening. So you will see a set of people walking on terrain which is slightly not leveled, but otherwise manageable, walkable kind of a thing. And once they start walking, they suddenly come into a situation which is a dead drop. Now, dead drop is a sudden situation like the one we are experiencing, and all adversities come like that. No adversity comes announced with a placard in its hand that I am the adversity and 1 month from now you will face me. Otherwise, it's not really adversity. You prepare for it. So the peculiar characteristic of any adversity is it comes unannounced and it comes very suddenly. And then a huge drop in the continuity is a natural outcome of that situation. When there is a huge drop, lots of people who are involved in trying to protect themselves tend to fall down, and as a consequence of which, yeah, after this, please, Vikas, the slide after this.
Yeah.
As a consequence of that, when they are only trying to protect themselves, they have a tendency to fall down and destroy themselves versus, sorry, as you will see, there are people walking on the green patch, which is not an even patch, it is an uneven patch. And then you will see a sudden black drop. That is the drop of adversity. Sets of people who are not prepared, who are impatient, who are rigid, who are not willing to make adjustments, who are not trying to learn the new things, they tend to fall and collapse, versus another set of brave hearts are willing to walk on ambiguous terrain, which is not necessarily straight. They don't know where they are going, walking on ambiguity. And this is very important, that when you're progressing, around the time that you really want to go from adversity into the new state of adversity plus prosperity, which is how we refer to it in adversity terminology, you are going to be having to be comfortable with ambiguity. And it is only after that, which will be followed by a lot of difficulty, a lot of cost cutting, lot of not knowing where you are going, but knowing that the direction is right. And then you reach a point which is going to be a disproportionately higher prosperous zone, which is the zone of prosperity plus, which you will reach to. Now, what people tend to miss out are the signals in the sky. There are blue skies when things are very steady state and normal. Then there are those dark clouds which come in, which again open out into the blue skies and then into a bright sun and a green terrain, which is representative of prosperity. Oftentimes, we tend to miss out signals, and therefore we are unable to trace adversity. And adversity, when it suddenly comes, leads you to a drop. If you try to only keep protecting to the status quo, there is no way you will be able to make progress, because your desire to go back into the old state is very high. Only those who are comfortable with ambiguity, only those who are brave hearts and want to move into the higher zone are the ones who will prosper and move into the new zone of success. The doodle is just representing that kind of a situation. Let's move on. Therefore, you require in this kind of situation, Vikas, will you move us to the next slide, please? So in this kind of situation, one is generally looking out for astute leadership. Now, why astute? What is this unique word I'm using? Because in all my literature, all my blogs and all, I've been making references to astute leadership. Now, generally, when you are using astute as a word in the language, it means insightful, it means sharp.
Very bright.
It means knowing. But there are two distinct characteristics about adversity which you should know. About astute leadership, there are two distinct characteristics. One is its ability for deep penetration and insight into what is happening around the network of relationships. So it has a unique advantage to be able to, because you moved one slide ahead, but it is okay, you can remain on that. So deep ability to collect insights from network of what is happening in the market, plus ability to engage and connect with the employees to be able to understand with a deep engagement what is the real stakeholder expectation in the changed environment. That is one of the most important characteristics of astute leadership. And the second is the ability to lead through clever, shrewd, quick, smart, and sharp action. So two things. Astute leadership is about ability to collect insights, which will give direction. And then, of course, the second is to be able to lead the team through smart, clever, ingenious, shrewd, and quick decisions so that they move in the right direction very fast. So the kind of situation we are facing requires astute leadership to be able to succeed. Now, astute leadership, one of the most important roles is that, currently as you are seeing the situation post-adversity moment, all organizations, cultures, societies, sociologies go through 4 stages which are very, very clear. If you look at the entire gamut of literature on adversity and crisis, they will tell you that the first zone is the dark zone, very similar to what possibly the Roman Empire faced, and there was dark zone, dark ages, which subsequently over a period of time got light, and then you got the period of Renaissance. So before any adversity comes, the immediate impact startles you and pushes the people who face that situation into what is called the dark ages. Now, what is important is that as I take you through these stages, you need to understand that the leader is supposed to do different things during each of these 4 stages, which is the dark zone, and then followed by the red zone, followed by the amber zone, and then followed by the green zone. Now, what is important is that each zone, the leader has to play a certain role to carry the team along to the next stage and not leave it to the forces of nature, because forces of nature may lead it to the next stage, but that may take a huge amount of time. And therefore, structurally, if the leader moves it, he will be able to succeed much faster than letting it to the forces of nature. So in the first impact zone, which is the dark zone, the morale generally is very low. The trust factors of the people very, very low in organizations. Also, you will experience this. Desire to find light from the dark moment is very, very high. There is a cataclysmic feeling that, oh God, we are about to be destroyed, Armageddon, and those kind of sentiments prevail because they are not able to see light out at this point of time. I would strongly believe that the leadership has very, very positive role to handle the anxiety. At this point of time, rather than anything else, they should be handling the anxiety. So direct touch, direct communication, nothing substitutes that at this point of time than leadership behavior that engages with people and communicates and allays the fear and provides some kind of a satisfaction which will take care of the anxiety at this point of time. Now, these are some of the things that we have said what leadership needs to be doing at this point of time when the dark ages are prevailing. Crisis communication, which means information, motivation, engagement, very, very critical. Even if it means over-communicating, I would say go by it and go by the over-communication point of view rather than under-communicate. At this point of time, there are many legal questions. Companies stupidly around this time will go around cutting. So much is the anxiety and so much is the impatience because they themselves don't know how to manage it, that they will do exactly opposite at this point of time of what they should not be doing if you really ask me. So this is not the point of time when they should immediately be deciding whether should we cut salaries, whether we should cut the total number of people. And in Bombay and India today, and we have had 5 to 7 calls in the last 3 days where senior people and their jobs have suddenly been cut over telephone, and they have been told that, sorry, your job is not required over telephone by a junior person nominated by the company. Now, these messages certainly are going to come to get, known to the other people in the organization, and the trust and confidence at this point of time will further go down rather than giving confidence, they end up doing exactly negative. Following the dark zone is the red zone. In the red zone, there are a few things to be done. The leader has cautiously at this point of time to handhold and move the infected people by handholding them from the dark zone, allaying their fears, anxiety, rebuilding their faith, building their confidence, telling them not to worry. Generally, we see in India, leadership has two kinds of things. Number one is leadership is what we call "dhoondte reh jaoge." You don't know where is leadership. Leadership which should be talking, leadership which should be speaking. You are searching for leadership and there is no leadership coming. And then suddenly a certain voice comes and says, "Main hoon na," for everything. He said, "Don't worry, I'm there, I'm there." Though he himself knows he can't do much about it, but he keeps giving reassurances at this point of time to see that, things are, because he himself is not aware what to do. That kind of leadership can be dangerous, but because it can keep giving assurances which it will subsequently and soon enough not be able to live up to. So very critical is wisdom to take them from dark zone to the red zone. In the ember zone, and this is one of the most critical zones at this point of time, huge amount of design thinking is required, because that is when you get into redefinitions. It's a moment of serious engagement. At this point of time, just engaging them in meaningless activities to make them believe that, oh, you are engaged in work is not required. In the ember zone, you really redesign the going forward change situation, the change in the value chain, the new business model, the new landscape. How should we be doing it? How should the supply chain be managed? What will be the customer's behavioral pattern? How will his consumption pattern change? How will we service them? So there are billion critical value chain and organizational questions which are involved at this stage. And therefore, in the ember zone, the design thinking mode has to be put in, and organization needs to redefine the value creation journey of the business using technology and milestones through these paths. By what stage will we cross what stage will we cross what. And thereafter comes what we call in the larger organization, the green zone, which is when the leadership starts rebuilding belief in the new horizon, new vision, new ways and new styles of working, building the capabilities, motivating people to recommit themselves, and those kinds of things. Vikas, can you move on to the next doodle, please? So these were the four, can you go one back, please? So these are the four stages, and you see the four different phases. There is a black phase, there is a red phase, there is a amber phase, and there is a green phase. And the leader with his arm is showing the direction at the right point of time and doing the right things. Move on to the next one, please. There are certain critical actions in the ember and the red zone which the leader should be mindful of. Number one is cost cutting becomes very important, and of course, and ideally there is no brainer that organizations require cost cutting at this point of time, because they are also not doing great business, and constantly the worry is that the changed value chain is not going to allow them to be doing great business either in the future. But once you are cutting the cost, you've got to be mindful that the organization who you are consulting with does not destroy future value, does not destroy future investment. Stopping future investments mindlessly is not cost cutting. It is like a doctor who is doing surgery. He knows that the toxic part of the anatomy has to be removed, but he also knows that he cannot cut the muscles and certainly not cut the bones. So therefore, cut the cost, which is very wasteful cost, but at the same time, don't cut value, don't stop your investment in future, which is one of the most important things the leader should be able to guide. And you as a company also, I would believe that you as partners guiding your clients should make them focus on this element and differentiate between the two. The second is that the leaders have to start behaving like what I call James Bond, because James Bond always says he likes his martini stirred and not shaken. Now it is very important that the leader should stir up the people to start getting up from the slumber to believe that world is not as easy as it is going to be. Unless they are stirred up, they will want to believe it is status quo and continue with what they were doing. So they need to be stirred up. But at the same point of time, they should not be so shaken up that they'll get into a stage of depression and will not be able to get up and be meaningful, contributing, positive partners of the company. And therefore, at that stage, if you notice a certain element of total shaking up and depression, the leader is expected to do engagement and connect the heart and the mind together and find a solution. The next slide, please. The next is necessary to understand that the leadership model is going to change. We have seen that people sitting in positions of organizational power tend to believe that just because they are leaders, they know how to manage the organization in the new situation is not the best way of looking at it. So therefore, over a period of time, what will emerge are the new set of leadership skill sets. We will have to find out, because it is, and there is no brainer to it, that the world is going to become digital, and the current organizational leadership, the entire agenda of the organizational digital program is in the hands of people who are themselves digitally challenged. So leaders who are digitally challenged cannot decide the agenda and the budgets of organizations who are preparing to create value in the digital world. And therefore, a new set of leadership with totally new set of competencies will have to be brought in, and therefore the leadership will have to focus on this. You cannot have off-road car drivers driving on the city road. Likewise, good city road drivers are not going to be the best off-road drivers. You need to know what kind of drivers you require and therefore bring it to that stage. The next slide, please. Knowledge becomes very, very critical. So while there are new skill sets that will be required, you will have to ensure that you don't throw away the baby with the bath water. And therefore, whatever is the critical or the core knowledge of the enterprise on the basis of which it has been creating value, while that may modify itself, over a period of time, a lot of this knowledge will have transferability, and therefore organizational knowledge management systems will have to be put in place. And the last slide that you will see on this one, if you will change Vikas, is culture. Now, culture is very, very important because culture is generally about rigidity. Cultures are built around rigidity of style, rigidity of opinion, rigidity of the value of the leader, and the entire organization circles around it. And when anyone comes with a different culture, which is different than what the culture of the organization is, he tends to get rejected and thrown out. You would have experienced why new leaders in organizations get thrown out, and they get thrown out because predominantly cultures are rigid, and therefore rigidity around culture flops, and therefore new leaders does not succeed. Now, adverse moments are real test of flexible culture, and unless and until the culture is flexible enough to adopt new and astute leadership, it will tend to fail. And therefore, that is one of the most important things that organizations will have to be focusing on. Can we move to the next one? What kind of leadership do we want? We want leadership that moves on from sharp to being smart, yes, but from value creating from stakeholders, we want leadership which will value create with social responsibility. Organizations cannot do these meaningless, superficial activities called social responsibilities. They will have to indulge themselves in very, very meaningful social responsibility act, and this is the changing mandate that leadership will have. Economic value creation will have to be supported by ecological value protection. We have been absolutely mindful about mindless about our ecological value protection, and therefore the future of leadership is going to focus on ecological value protection as much. Powerful leadership will have to give way to inspirational leadership, and happiness in organizations will have to really bring and give way to a future of flourish. What we call in organization development, create a sense of flourish. Can we move on to the next doodle, please? What do leaders do? We don't want cowboys. So the hat which you see up there is a cowboy hat. Actually, the concept that is being spoken around the world is astute leaders make haste slowly. Agility is very important, but agility is slightly different than speed. Speed is not the only purpose of taking action at a fast pace is not necessarily the right action. It is therefore necessary that leadership thinks, and once it is thought, then it should not get thought into an analysis paralysis mode. Then it should get into serious action mode at a fast speed. But before that, it needs to seriously think and then take action. And therefore, if they were running a marathon, leadership first needs to buy a thinking head before it invests money in buying tracksuits or track pants. I'm coming to the last doodle, which is much more in the sense of what do I really want to believe? People ask me, will we be able to succeed in this situation? This is such a tall order. Where do we start? Do we really need to start? Well, my brief quote from Rumi is very simple. It says, हासिल होगे वो नए मकाम, तू पहला कदम रख के तो देख, फिर जलेंगे वो बुझे चिराग, तू एक चिंगारी बन के तो देख. And that is what my theme message for you is. Each one of us has to learn to take the first step. And I'm sure that once we take the first step, we will find the end route. If we start putting the first fire on, we will be able to ensure that we will light the lamps which we doubt were ever going to burn again. This is the summary. I hope it made sense to you.
Adil, thank you very much. It was indeed thought-provoking, and you gave new insights to what leadership is all about, especially in the crisis moment of today. And such crises will continue to come without notice. I think you have actually thrown light, and we are grateful to you for all the inputs that you have given. I have one major question, which is all about the management cadre, the people who are in the economy, as to what they should be doing. Now, if I come to what I call the magic potion, there are two magic potions that is necessary. One magic potion is the vaccine. The vaccine that is not in our area, it is not in our ambit. When it comes, we'll see. But till then, what is it? What is that second other magic potion that you would like to recommend for all of us to embrace and ensure that the economy survives?
So this is a paid question or unpaid question?
The former one.
No, I'm joking. So I don't know about Partho. Have you heard of John Wolfgang Goethe? You heard of him? He said that magic is believing in yourself, and if you can do that, you can make anything happen. So predominantly, if you start believing in yourself, that is the starting point, and then a lot many things will fall in line. Belief in your power of finding solutions, belief in the general goodness of mankind, because mankind always wins, belief in power of divinity as well. And sorry, it is not necessary that all of you need to be believing in divinity. I very sincerely believe in divinity. So over and above power in yourself and power in humanity, I also believe that if you believe in the power of divinity to find a positive way out, there will be a solution, magical or not magical, that will come up. Tough times are going to come. This is not the first time in the world that tough time has been experienced in this world. It has been around the 3,000, 4,000 years of evolutionary history. Catastrophes like this have come and gone. And not that every time catastrophes have come, people knew very clearly as to what was the way forward. They walked on ambiguous paths and they found the solution. Like we will walk on ambiguous paths and we will find the solution. But it is very necessary for us to adopt 3 or 4 behaviors if we are going to be really succeeding to find a way out. Number one is we will have to curb ostentatious consumptions for a while, because resources wasted would be very dangerous. We don't know what kind of investments we will require in the future, and therefore ostentatious cost consumptions will have to be curbed down so that we can save the money for future investments wherever we will require them. The next is one will have to learn to be comfortable in ambiguity, and at the same time making investment in future, because it is ambiguous and you will not make investment in future, you will be making a great folly. And the third is the most important thing, and that again is a beautiful quote. It says, "मुख्तसर सी जिंदगी के बस यही अफसाने हैं, यहाँ तीर भी चलाने हैं और परिंदों को भी बचाना है." You have to find your success, and you have to yet protect the people. Though at times killing the people may be the answer, but yet you cannot kill the people. So you have to find a solution and you have to protect the people.
Adil, second one is all about the leadership traits. You talked about astute leadership. Now, we hardly have any time to find out these capabilities. Neither we have time to train them with these capabilities. Now, what is your answer? That today we all need these leaders with these capabilities to come and save the industry, save the economy. तो आपके पास क्या solution है?
मेरे पास कोई magic dust ना magic wand है. I don't carry a magic wand nor a magic dust, and I wish I had sometimes. But good it is not, because if the world has a magic wand, it will never strive to find solution. It will only keep twirling a magic wand. And that is the end of humanity. We learn only to twirl magic wands to find our solution. Now, my experience tells me that leadership emerges over a period of time to match the challenges that the world throws at it. There will not be a one-stop answer. You will not be able to find the answer in one jump. You will have to make multiple jumps. Maybe leadership will emerge after you have made those series of jumps, and the correct leadership will come. Problem has unique ability to find its own solution. The full stack, full blended leadership will emerge over a period of time. If you start looking at it right now, you will not get it tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning, we are neither going to be in that future situation. It is also a transitory state. But it is necessary for us to understand that we have to build the capability of our leadership. We will have to train our leaders and make them ready. And once we start the journey, slowly, we will reach the end. But this is not the first time that the world has met an adverse situation. That is very important for us. So if the world has found a solution to the changing environment over a period of time, we will also find a solution.
Okay, Amit is one of our partners. He has a question for you. Amit?
Thank you, Adil, for a very insightful commentary. Let me just ask you on the side here. I heard with a lot of interest a couple of terms that you used. Ambiguity was one of them. You mentioned about direct communication, and obviously those zones that the transition will have to happen from where things are now till it stabilizes. Can I ask you a question here? Obviously, you've been coaching as well. I see you have a number of people that you have coached. Let me ask you, in today's context, where do you see the power of coaching conversations with leaders, amongst leaders?
So my experience tells me that around this time, lot of leaders are themselves very confused about the direction to be taken. They're all leading large companies, but merely because they are sitting in leadership roles, for us to imagine that they can see very clearly how they are going to lead through, they don't know. Frankly, they are making all the mistakes, not communicating wrong things. So at this point of time, the first set of communications which is going on is strategic conversations with themselves, giving them that element of confidence that, it's not a doomsday philosophy, because they're themselves going through all the 4 zones of behavior. So it is very necessary that you get into conversations with them, help them to find a solution for their own organization. You are like a doctor who knows what the patient behaviors could be, but let the patient walk, let the patient say what he is suffering from, let the patient say what his worry is, and you keep giving him your hand to hold and see if he can find a solution. But it is the moment for crucial conversations with your coaching.
Okay, so what you're saying is, I understand that could be a role for outside coaches, external coaches who are not a part of the system, to come and see what they can do to give more accountability to the leaders in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely huge role. In fact, better that you are from outside, because internal politics and internal power play will stop him from accepting generally, as I have seen, advice of the external guys.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Next question, Sita Chinappa. You would like to ask Adil? Okay, Shamin, please.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Sita, Sita, you can ask. Sure, please.
Yeah. So my question was around the issue of risk. I noticed in your doodle the idea that you have to have really a healthy risk appetite in this brave new world was apparent. Now, how do you kind of balance that with the idea of risk mitigation? Because this is really a crucial balancing act that somebody would have to do. I understand your brave heart, but I also have empathy for the brave heart needing to do some risk mitigation.
Sure. So, Sita, I don't know if you have ever had the opportunity to read this very beautiful book called The Medici Effect. And if you have not read it, I would very seriously suggest you should read this book called The Medici Effect, which is how the Medici family from Italy succeeded in creating a period of Renaissance from the Dark Ages, and what did they do at the crossroads. It's a beautiful book, you should read it. Some of the real takeaways is that the tendency when there is this huge adversity happening to keep conserving is very, very good. But if you have to make progress at some point of time, someone will have to make investments in the future. So if you are very risk mitigating kind of mindset, not making investments, the progress will be slowed down. So therefore, there would be some who are born with that entrepreneurial mindset who will see that if they make investments in the future, their growth will be very, very exponential. And when they believe in that exponential growth, they will make those investments. And that is why the future entrepreneurs will prosper far higher, because in this general environment and milieu, the tendency is to conserve and not make investments.
Shamin, you can ask, please.
Yeah. Okay, let me. Yeah. Thank you very much, Adil, for a very exciting presentation on leadership.
Don't say exciting in the Chinese way.
Yeah. I mean, now everything is happening thanks to Chinese only. So some element of Chinese will always happen. Anyway.
Their excitement also doesn't last long.
I know. Okay. So, Adil, so my question was little more philosophical. So I'm saying, in an organization, the main task of a leader is to set a vision, help the team come to some strategies, and then he works relentlessly in trying to build leadership pipeline. Right? Now, the thing I wanted to ask you is, in a very simple 2-3 point answers, if it is possible, what should the leader do so that he's able to, in a way, conceptually procreate, a very large number of leaders, which can eventually replace him? I mean, the observation is that a lot of leaders don't want to actually work towards replacing them one day. I mean, they just want to keep sitting there. So the question is that, can you tell us from your experience and your thoughts, what are the few things this supreme leader of the organization, which is the MD or CEO, should do to develop a very, very strong leadership pipeline?
Okay, so if I were it, I will tell you, and please, for God's sake, I don't want to be seen or understood as someone who has magical answers to all questions, all right? Because I am also myself experiencing the world in a different way now. Of course, I have handled many adversities for my clients and wife in my corporate role. So I'm using those learnings to be able to drive to a reality of the changed world. So if I was the top supreme leader in an organization at this point of time, what I would do is, first of all, I would now try to identify my second and third line of leadership and empower them to do much more than what they have been doing until now. And I will put my current set of leadership in coaching roles to be able to guide them to see that they don't end up making a mistake somewhere. But at the same time, I will immediately put them in a much more meaningful, powerful role. Because I believe that unless people start experiencing the world and touching the realities of the challenges, theoretical appreciations don't really bring you to any conclusions. So therefore, create meaningful, say for example, today the entire customer satisfaction process is going to be changing. The entire value to value journey is going to change. The entire supply value creation process is going to change. The entire logistics is going to change. I would put some of these second level of identified leaders till now who were actually leaders but working relentlessly under those powerful, bigger, older leaders. I will put these guys in charge, and I would literally have a series of advisory committee kind of a thing where I would put all these old guys together to say, fine, this is the situation, this is the demand, we now need to be letting these guys run, because it is a world which these leaders who are currently in charge have not even understood or experienced. The second layer somewhat, the junior much more, but you have to mitigate the risk, as Sita was saying, that you cannot really take all the risk. So therefore you will take the second line of leadership, which has got experience of the first line of conservative leadership, at the same time is exposed to taking the market risks, and put them into charge and ensure that the world moves that way. So I would change the shape of leadership. I would use the current people, and wherever I find that I'm doing a kind of a adjustment in leadership, I will rather move them out. I will save that cost, and I will invest that cost in getting better leadership.
Okay, thank you.
Adil, I have a question for you. Do you visualize a situation where there may be a separation of leadership going forward into, let's say, two C-level leaders, one responsible for, stable state, running the operations and managing that, and another C-level officer who is, for lack of a better word, the chief adversity officer, let's say, and who is responsible and tasked with imagining scenarios of forthcoming black swan events and preparing organization for them?
If you see, this is, I have a total disconnect with that kind of a model, and it can work for all, I am not the ultimate in trying to decide whether this will work or that will work, but I have a certain aversion towards this kind of segregation of duties, to believe we will create departmentalized version. So your department or your role predominantly is to look at the black swan event. This is exactly how we behaved when we separated the safety movement from the leadership role. We started separating the quality movement from the leadership role and said, no, quality you handle, steady state business this guy is going to handle. Ultimate leadership is supposed to be responsible for creating value for the business in the steady state and in the future state. And that is what his role is about. Unfortunately, we see the top leaders getting involved one too much into execution roles, which they need to move back. They need to be using their time far more meaningfully for leadership and strategic roles than to get involved. Every day in the morning, if the CEO of the company is only bothered about what kind of business we have created, how much of units we have sold, what is our credit line, if this is what he is doing, then his focus is much more on operating business. And I believe that actually this separation or segregation that you're talking about, Amal, ideally, I believe that the CEO's role is that to look at the future, to ensure that the future is managed. And this is what the responsibility of the board is, to ensure that there is continuity. So the CEO and the board have to manage that. The chief operating officer can be responsible for the operational management of the business. But to create yet another position to say chief adversity officer is to create another chief quality officer, to create another chief safety officer who will have no meaningful roles and credibility or seat on the table. Because we are big monster Pareto calamity driven people. Whatever is the most difficult problem on the table currently, which is always operational, we will focus on that.
Thank you, Adil. May I now request Amal Das to kindly do the honors and wrap up the session, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Adil. Just an aside, I don't think it is an aside, but I have known Adil as the trained boxer, very unusual to, you know, what you call, let it out here in this forum, but that's the only way in which you can do that.
Used to be.
Yeah, it used to be. So that's great. And I could see the punches coming through, you know, and that's the way he is. And I think you traveled a lot of path in terms of, you know, the way in which people at the leadership level should be responding or try and make amends on certain ways, the knee-jerk reaction that people are having. I have just a small question on this, is that you have a major shareholder who is there, and then you have a leadership team supporting it. You find that at this juncture, most of them are at crossroads, you know. So the owners who are there, who are the majority shareholders, they have a particular view and they jump the gun by even, you know, tactical things like, for example, 15 days into the crisis, there will be salary cuts, you know. And then now, you know, I don't know by what advice again, you know, now they are thinking of, they shouldn't have as such. So I believe that, like, these sort of things which are happening, how would you respond to that?
I was looking out for one book which I want you to read, and I keep telling you the books. You should read this book by Talib.
Yeah.
Fooled by Relentlessness. And that's one of the best books you could ever read. And this book is saying as to how, at a given point of time, entrepreneurs succeed, and they believe that they have got some formula, versus they tend to forget that there are one too many elements in the larger universe which have conspired alongside the decision he took to make his decision succeed at a given point of time. Much later, when they try to take the same decision because their belief is that my stimulus gives me results, they don't seem to realize that the second time over, the entire universal factors need to conspire, don't necessarily conspire, and therefore they can't succeed all the time. So just because in the past one or two events they may have succeeded in doing symbolic things to cut costs, and therefore they believe now they should do that, they are making the gravest blunder. They need to have belief in the fact that they themselves do not know the situation. Therefore, they should form themselves into blended teams along with professionals who understand the situation to arrive at the right decision.
Good. Thank you very much, Adil, for being with us. And we hope to be having you with all your thoughts and all, and look forward to the morning doodles.
Thank you so much. Pleasure is all mine. And I thank you for the respect and trust you've shown.